So today we're going to be talking about how to solve two-step equations, which is basically the same thing that we did yesterday. We're just adding a step. It is very similar to solving regular equations. It just has an inequality sign. So in number 1, the first thing that we would want to do is to get x by itself. So what would we do first, Kat, to get x by itself? We would subtract 3 from both sides. So that would give me 5x is greater than 15. Then to get x all by itself, we would divide by 5 on both sides. And so x would be greater than 3. So when we're graphing, what do we need to do to graph? Would it be open or closed circle? It would be an open circle. It would be going to the right. Very good. So because this is just a greater than sign, we don't close our circle. And then this arrow right here, or the inequality sign, is facing to the right. Okay, so for number 2, again, we're going to try to get x by itself. So Leah, what would you move first to get x by itself? Very good. We subtract 7 from both sides. That would give us a negative 4x is greater than or equal to 8. Okay, and then what would we do next to get x by itself? Very good. We divide by negative 4. Okay, so yesterday we learned when we divide by a negative, what happens, Tartania? The sign flips. Very good. So this would become x, and instead of it being less than or equal to, it would change to greater than or equal to, and then 8 divided by negative 4 is a negative 2. Okay? So when graphing, we're going to come down. We're going to put our tick mark and negative 2. Would this be an open or closed dot? Closed. And which way is this inequality sign pointing? To the right. Very good. Okay, so for number 3, again, we're trying to get x by itself. So Bella, what would you do first? You would add 10 to both sides. Very good. That would give me 6x is greater than or equal to negative 12. Okay, Chris, what would you do next? Divide by 6. Very good. And so, am I flipping any signs here? No, because the number we're dividing by is not negative. So it would stay x is greater than or equal to, and negative 12 divided by 6 is a negative 2. So to graph that, I would come down and put a tick mark. I would put negative 2. Is it open or closed dot? Closed. And which way is it facing? The right. So it's basically the same graph from number 2. Right? Okay, do I have any questions so far? No? Okay. So in number 4, again, we're trying to get x by itself. So Jordan, what would you do first to get x by itself? Subtract 5 from both sides. That would give me negative 9x is greater than or equal to, what is 32 minus 5? 27. Very good. Okay, what would you do next, Jocelyn, to get x by itself? Divide by negative 9. Very good. And there is going to be a sign flip because we divided by a negative. So that would give us x is greater than or equal to negative 3. So to graph that, we'd come down here, we'd put a tick mark and a negative 3. Would it be open or closed dot? Closed. And which way is it facing? To the right. All of these are facing right so far. Okay, Samantha, for number 5, what would you do first there? Distribute. Very good. So we take 3 and we distribute that to both things. So we get 3x plus 15 is greater than 12. Okay. Chris, what would you do first to get x by itself? Subtract 15 from both sides. That would give me 3x is less than negative 3. Will, what would you do to get x by itself? Divide by 3, and so x would be less than negative 1. So we'd come down here, we'd put our tick mark, our negative 1. Would it be open or closed? Open, and which way is it going? Left. Okay. All right, Kate, what would you do first for number 6? Distribute your 5. That would give us 20 minus 5x is less than or equal to 30. Caitlin, what would you do to get x by itself? Subtract 20 on both sides. That would give me negative 5x is less than or equal to 10. Okay. Very good. We divide by negative 5. Very good. So dividing by a negative means our sign flips. So this is going to become x is greater than or equal to negative 2. Come down here, put your tick mark. Your negative 2. Is it going to be open or closed dot? Closed, going to the right. Very good. Any questions so far? All right, let's look at these last 3. So what do you notice about the x in all of these? It's on the opposite side. So it's on the right side. We really want x's on the left, so we're going to have to change this once we do it. Okay? So what would we do first to get x by itself here? You would have to add 9 to both sides. That would give me, yes, 24 is less than 2x. Then to get x by itself, we do what? Divide by 2. And so that would be 12 is less than x. And so when I graded y'all's homework, sometimes when we rewrote it, we left our sign exactly the same. We don't leave the sign exactly the same. We just got to make sure the right part is facing x, okay? So when I rewrite this, is the open part facing x or the closed part? Or, okay, let's think of it like this. If this is an arrow, which way is the arrow facing, the 12 or the x? The 12. So when I flip it, I want to make sure it's still facing the 12. So it needs to be facing the 12. Is the arrow facing the 12 here? Yes. So see how it swapped so that it would still be facing? Okay, so now we can graph this. Do not graph it from here because it will be wrong. So put your tick mark, put 12. Is it open or closed? Open. And which way is it facing? Right. The right. If you don't flip it, it would be facing the left, and then you'd end up getting it wrong. Okay, so let's do another one like that, because it wasn't just one person that messed that up yesterday. It was a couple. So in number 8, what would we do first to get x by itself? Do we? X is on the right-hand side, so we'd subtract 12. Very good. That gives me negative 20 is greater than negative 2x. Then what would we do to get x by itself? Divide by negative 2. What happens when we divide by a negative? The sign flips. So now this would be positive 10, because a negative divided by a negative is a positive. And instead of greater than, it's going to be less than x. Okay? So is my inequality sign or my arrow facing 10 or facing x here? My arrow's pointing to x? To 10. So when I write it the opposite way, it should still be facing or pointing to 10. Okay, so see how we're pointing to 10 right here? So we're going to come down, put our tick mark, write 10. Would we have an open or closed dot? Open. And which way is it going? To the right. Okay, I still think we need one more of those. So number 9, what would we do first to get x by itself? Add 6 to both sides. That would give me negative 14 is less than negative 7x. How do I get x by itself now? Divide by negative 7. And what happens when we divide by a negative? The sign flips. So instead of being less than, it's actually going to be greater than. Negative 14 divided by negative 7 is 2. And then this leaves us with x. So now when I change this, is...
The sign is down here, but like when you flip it, isn't it x greater than 2?
Which way is this arrow pointing towards x or 2?
2.
The arrow's pointing to 2. Why are you confused? We're flipping. Originally, it's less than. We have to flip the sign because we divided by a negative. So it changed like this. Then when we rewrite it, x and 2, x has to be on the left. Is this arrow pointing to x or pointing to 2? To x. So when you change it, it still has to be pointing to x. See if we treat this.
But like in the top, it's pointing to the negative 20, and then when you divide, it's pointing to negative 14, and then you bring it down, and it's pointing to 2, and that's how you flip it, and it's gonna. I'm still confused. It's in there, right?
The first time you don't.
But I thought it was supposed to be pointing towards the number.
No, it doesn't always point towards a number. It always points towards what it's pointing to before. Before it is pointing to. If I treat this like an arrow, which one is it pointing to? 2 or x? X. So when I get down here, it has to point to x. So up here, it's pointing to 10. So here it's pointing to 10. Here it's pointing to 12. So it's still pointing to 12. It's pointing to the same thing every time. Okay. So Chris, what happens when we divide by a negative? It flips the sign. So right here, it was less than. We divided by a negative 7, and so it flipped to be opposite. You have to know the rules. Did you do it correctly?
Flipping